Kate Winslet stepped onto the set of The View to sustained applause, the kind that felt less like celebrity excitement and more like genuine respect. She acknowledged the audience with a warm smile, her posture relaxed but self-assured, and took her seat at the table as Joy Behar welcomed her with a familiar blend of humor and admiration. The opening moments carried an easy rhythm. Kate spoke about her latest film with thoughtful enthusiasm, describing the quiet intensity of the role and the way she'd been drawn to stories that allowed women to exist without ornament or apology. Her voice was steady, reflective, and inviting, and the audience responded with approving nods and scattered applause. The conversation widened naturally. Kate talked about aging in Hollywood, about how she had learned to push back against expectations that once felt immovable. She spoke candidly about rejecting retouching, about wanting younger actors to see a future that didn't demand self-erasure. Joy chimed in with her own sharp observations, teasing the industry's obsession with youth while praising Kate for her consistency and courage. For a moment, the two women seemed aligned, both outspoken, both skeptical of superficial narratives. As the discussion deepened, Kate elaborated on authenticity, explaining that for her, it meant choosing roles in public moments that felt honest rather than strategic. She said she had become wary of performative gestures, of feeling pressured to package her beliefs for public consumption. The audience listened closely, the energy attentive rather than reactive. Whoopi Goldberg nodded along, murmuring agreement, while Sunny Hostin leaned forward, clearly engaged. Joy's tone shifted subtly as she reframed the conversation. She suggested that authenticity, while admirable, didn't exist in a vacuum, especially for people with immense platforms. She questioned whether personal honesty was enough in a world facing urgent social and political challenges, hinting that public figures who stopped at self-expression might be choosing comfort over consequence. The room grew quieter. Kate's smile softened, then tightened just slightly, though her eyes remained calm. Kate responded with care. She said she believed in responsibility, but also in nuance, and that she resisted the idea that there was a single, correct way to use influence. She explained that she supported causes privately and publicly when it felt appropriate, but refused to turn every conviction into a declaration. Her voice carried no defensiveness, only clarity. Joy leaned forward, unconvinced. She asked whether that distinction really mattered to people who felt unheard, whether choosing when to speak wasn't itself a form of privilege. A low murmur rippled through the audience. Kate paused before answering, choosing her words deliberately. She said she understood the frustration, but cautioned against equating silence with indifference. She added that not every meaningful action was visible, and that reducing complex human choices to optics risked flattening real engagement. Joy's expression hardened. She dismissed the explanation as a convenient boundary, suggesting that celebrities often use the language of nuance to avoid discomfort. The word, convenient, hung in the air. Kate straightened slightly, her composure intact but her tone firmer. She said she found it troubling to imply cowardice where there was conscientious choice, and that she rejected the idea that integrity required constant public performance. The exchange sharpened. Joy pressed on, arguing that discomfort was the price of relevance, that public figures couldn't opt out of scrutiny while benefiting from attention. Kate replied that relevance built on coercion wasn't integrity at all, it was theater. The audience reacted audibly, some applauding, others shifting uneasily. The friendly cadence of the show had given way to something taut and unpredictable. Whoopi attempted to intervene, suggesting they take a breath and widen the lens. Kate nodded in appreciation, but Joy continued, questioning whether Kate underestimated her influence and the expectations that came with it. Kate responded calmly, saying she took influence seriously, which was precisely why she refused to trivialize it with slogans. She said she believed conversation should be rooted in curiosity, not accusation. Joy scoffed lightly, making a remark about fragility and thin skin. The comment cut through the room. Kate's expression changed, not to anger, but to resolve. She took a breath, then spoke quietly, her words measured and unmistakable. She said she hadn't come to be interrogated or diminished, and that respectful disagreement was one thing, but being talked down to was another. The studio felt suddenly smaller. The audience fell silent. Joy responded with a sharp retort, doubling down on her point and framing Kate's stance as evasive. Kate listened without interrupting, her gaze steady. When Joy finished, Kate paused again, as if weighing whether the conversation could be recalibrated. Then she stood. The movement was abrupt enough to draw a collective gasp. Kate removed her microphone slowly, deliberately, and placed it on the table. She looked at Joy, then at the other hosts, her voice calm but unwavering. She said she believed in dialogue that expanded understanding, not exchanges designed to corner. She thanked the audience for their warmth and nodded respectfully to Whoopi. The moment Kate disappeared behind the curtain, the studio seemed to exhale all at once, a collective release of tension that had nowhere else to go. Applause lingered in uneven bursts, some enthusiastic, others hesitant, as if the audience itself wasn't quite sure how to process what it had just witnessed. Joy Behar sat frozen for a beat longer than usual, her mouth slightly open, eyes fixed on the space Kate had occupied moments earlier. The empty chair felt louder than any argument. Whoopi Goldberg was the first to move. She cleared her throat, the sound amplified in the sudden quiet, and leaned forward toward the camera. Her voice was steady but serious as she said they were going to take a break. It wasn't the usual smooth transition to commercial, it was clipped, purposeful. The screen faded out as the band remained silent, their instruments untouched. When the cameras cut, the studio erupted into motion. Producers rushed onto the set, murmuring urgently into headsets. One handed Joy a glass of water. Another spoke quietly to Whoopi, gesturing toward the control booth. The audience buzzed with whispered conversations, phones discreetly pulled out despite staff asking them to wait. Everyone knew this wasn't just another awkward TV moment. It felt bigger, heavier. Joy finally leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms tightly. Her expression shifted from shock to irritation, then to something more guarded. She muttered something under her breath that only those closest could hear. Whoopi turned toward her, her face unreadable, and said softly but firmly that they would talk later. Sunny Hostin looked conflicted, glancing between Joy and the space where Kate had been, while the other hosts sat in tense silence. Backstage, Kate moved with brisk determination, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. A producer caught up to her, asking if she wanted to take a moment, if she wanted to say anything on record. Kate shook her head gently but decisively. Her face was composed, but her eyes betrayed a mix of disappointment and clarity, as if a boundary she had long considered theoretical had suddenly become real. "I'm fine," she said quietly. "I just needed to leave." She thanked a few crew members who offered apologetic smiles, then continued toward her dressing room. There was no dramatic outburst, no tears, no raised voice, just a firm withdrawal. A publicist arrived moments later, already fielding messages, but Kate waved off questions. She said she'd speak later, on her own terms. In the studio, the show resumed after the break, but the atmosphere was irrevocably altered. Whoopi addressed the audience directly, acknowledging that things had gotten heated and emphasizing the importance of respectful dialogue. She didn't mention Kate by name, nor did she apologize outright, but her words carried a tone of reflection rather than defense. Joy spoke next, her voice sharper than usual. She said she believed tough conversations were necessary and that walking away didn't resolve disagreement. The audience reaction was mixed, some applause, some silence. The contrast was impossible to ignore. The remaining segments felt rushed, subdued, as if everyone was acutely aware that the real moment of the day had already passed. Once the broadcast ended, the real fallout began. Clips of Kate standing, removing her microphone, and walking off spread across social media within minutes. Headlines framed the incident in stark terms: a clash, a storm off, a brutal exchange. Commentators dissected every word, every facial expression. Some praised Kate for refusing to be spoken down to, calling her exit dignified and necessary. Others accused her of avoiding accountability or silencing debate. Joy's remarks were replayed endlessly, slowed down, analyzed for tone and intent. Supporters argued she had simply asked hard questions. Critics said she crossed the line into condescension. The debate quickly expanded beyond the two women, morphing into a broader argument about celebrity responsibility, media confrontation, and the limits of public discourse. Kate, meanwhile, remained silent. She declined interview requests and posted nothing on social media. That silence only intensified the speculation. Some interpreted it as grace, others as strategy. But those close to her said she felt no regret, only sadness that a conversation she had hoped might be thoughtful had turned adversarial. Later that evening, Joy addressed the incident briefly on another program, standing by her position but admitting that emotions had escalated. She said live television was unpredictable and that not everyone was prepared for direct questioning. The comment reignited criticism, with many arguing it missed the point entirely. Behind the scenes at The View, producers held emergency meetings, reviewing the segment frame by frame. Discussions about tone, moderation, and boundaries resurfaced yet again, familiar but newly urgent. The incident became a case study, one that would be referenced in future bookings, future conversations, future caution.